This frame has been leaning up against the wall for over a decade. Well, today that changes. We're pulling it down and getting this Jeep as a rolling chassis. So I have everything all set behind me here. They say prep is the most important part to any paint job, which is why I've spent about 4 hours now going through and prepping all of this. Even though it was all sandblasted, I still went through with Scotch-Brite pad to knock any of the surface rust off, wiped it down dry, and then wiped it down twice with a lint-free cloth soaked in acetone. So that'll get rid of any oils, grease, or dust that were still on the parts. So now that we're ready for paint, let's talk about what I'm going to use. I'm using this SEM Rust Shield. You may have seen in my rock slider video, I used it on that for the CJ. I use it pretty much on all axles and frames that I do. So you can get it in a gallon can, and right out of the can you can either brush, roll, or spray it. Now I choose to thin it when I spray it, just to help it come out of the gun and lay down a little bit nicer. I'll get this mixed up, turn the air compressor on, and we'll jump right into it. Alright, so we got the frame on the lift, went through, gave it a quick dusting. I do have it strapped down just because it's so light, it was a little unstable on the arms. So now let's go through, get the springs and axles installed. Alright, so we got a complete rolling chassis now. I threw the grill and the bumper on just to make it start looking more like a Jeep. And I got the engine in place here. Well, it's still on the engine stand, but at least it's in place and we're making progress. So the motor had good compression, oil pressure when we pulled it out. So we're not going to go through and rebuild this engine. We've already gone through, just painted it up, given a little freshen up. I'm sure there's going to be stuff we'll need to do now because it's sat for another 10-15 years. We'll oil the cylinders down, get it all ready to actually fire up when we get to that point. Now the motor is not fully installed, it's still just on the engine stand. Where the mounts are, it's too far forward, we can't mount it in by itself. We need the transmission and transfer case, at least the transmission, to hold the back side of the motor up. So it's just going to stay on the engine stand for now. So once we get the transmission and transfer case rebuilt, get this all mounted in, then we can start going through doing exhaust systems, running all the brake lines, running the steering. My goal is to have this Jeep all complete, running and driving by the 4th of July. Which, looking right now, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But really, once we get through those systems that I just mentioned, there's not going to be too much body work to do on the new tub that we have for it. Obviously, there's not much to the interiors on these that we have to do, or wiring. It's just the lights, maybe a couple wires to get the motor running. So it is a lot of work, but I think it's doable as long as I stop talking and start getting back to work. All right, so before you go, I want to give a shout out over to Jacob at 7 Bar Salvage for these awesome stickers that he sent over. Now, he also has a 3B. He's got a YouTube channel. His is quite a bit more complete than mine. So go check him out if you're interested in more 3B content. It was actually his video that I watched that convinced me to do the GeoTracker brakes on my 3B. But I'm going to go pull the transmission out of the corner, start tearing into that. Thanks for taking the time and watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.